And from the Milimani Road, we now cross over to Kisumu, where Achola Simon has been keeping tabs with what is happening there. Achola, good afternoon.
Well, thank you, Ben, Troy, Joey. We will apologize for that technical hitch with our sound. However, the issue has now been sorted out, and of course, I want to believe that you can actually get us loud and clear. I was actually saying was a fact. What we were saying is a fact that things have been quite peaceful here today in the morning, where, of course, the governor of Kisumu County, Professor Peter Anyang' Nyong'o, and his deputy, including some of the elected leaders here in Kisumu County, did manage to talk to the demonstrators who actually had gathered at Kondele. Kondele is usually the place where demonstrators here in Kisumu actually gather before, of course, they hold that procession into right through the CBD. They did manage to actually met the demonstrators, and of course managed to convince them to use the northern bypass, which actually passes just behind Kibuye Market, one of the largest market in this open air market in this region, of course towards Nairobi Road to a stage called Nyamasaria. And they did manage to hold that procession peacefully, of course voicing their anti-government sentiments. And of course at around 10:30 thereabout, they did manage to break, and each and every person, of course, went their way. What has actually happened, Ben, is that small pockets of demonstrators did manage to gather in various positions, and some of them have actually been trying to access the CBD. The CBD remains largely deserted, and there's no many activities actually going on in the CBD in terms of the usual business, because here, especially this particular place we are, is actually a beehive of activities, people actually running small businesses here and there. But as we speak right now, most of those shops are actually closed. So the demonstrators, small pockets of demonstrators, have actually been trying to access the CBD. And what is happening is that the police have actually managed to put a buffer zone right here on this roundabout, repulsing any efforts by those demonstrators to access the CBD. They've actually managed to lob tear gas canisters in the crowd that was actually trying to surge towards town. But what we can actually report, Troy Njue, is a fact that we've not witnessed chaos to the scale that we actually witnessed last Monday. The shops have not been looted, despite the fact that most of them remained closed, and we've also not seen destruction of property as witnessed on Monday. The other thing that we've actually witnessed, but not to the scale that we actually witnessed last Monday, has been the issue of barricading the road. There are small roadblocks that have actually been erected on some of the roads that are actually leading into the CBD by the youths who are actually manning those roadblocks. But there's nothing much that is actually happening. When we were coming from Nyamasaria towards town, we actually encountered 3 or 4 such barricades. But the good thing is that they did allow us to actually pass without doing any harm to us or even the vehicle that you're actually using to access the CBD. So it remains largely peaceful, except for the fact that the demonstrators have actually been engaging the police in running battles here and there. Of course, that is an issue that we will actually be keeping a keen eye on, just to get to see how it will unravel as the day goes by. But one thing that we must give credit to is the fact that the leadership of Kisumu County came out strongly and did manage to convince the demonstrators not to come to town. We don't want to imagine the large crowd that had actually gathered in Kondele. Had they been allowed to come to town, what might have actually happened? But they took they took the initiative and talked to them to ensure that they actually moved or they demonstrated using the northern bypass that goes all the way to Nyamasaria. Other than that, of course, Ben, is the fact that here people are actually very calm. We've actually seen a number of border borders actually been allowed into town, though there's not much they're actually doing in terms of business, but they've actually been allowed into town, which is a good sign. And we've also seen a number of people actually moving up and about. The only thing that the police are actually ensuring is that those that are actually engaged in demonstrations are not allowed into town for obvious reason. Ben, remember that just before the technical hitch occurred, I was saying that we did manage to talk to the chair of the National Chambers of Commerce, who is the chair in Kisumu County. And one of the issues that he actually raised was the fact that Kisumu County loses hundreds of millions of shillings each and every time we go for demonstrations. While he was not clear on whether the demonstrations must be there or not, what he did state was the fact that the county continues to lose millions, hundreds of millions of shillings, and there's need for actually to check on how those demonstrations can actually go on. However, businesses are also allowed to operate normally. Ben, that is what we have for you now, but of course, no doubt we'll be keeping a keen eye on what will happen here, so that then, of course, in our subsequent live links, we'll actually be able to tell you what is happening here in Kisumu County.